February 5th, 2017, our first meeting of 2017. So I'd like to say Happy New Year to everyone. And as Kate Caney from the Warrant Committee said, let the games begin. So, so this evening we actually have, it's a nice welcome back. It's a shorter meeting, a short agenda, and the first item on the agenda is Chief McGowan with a reappointment regarding an appointment for a new part-time police officer.
Yes, good evening and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm here actually to make a recommendation. We had an unexpected resignation in our special officer staff, and I was able to find a candidate who is a very close runner-up the last time we did this. I was just in here before the board last month, or
right.
The end of November, and the gentleman that I'm going to ask for or present a recommendation for, his name is Donald Cahill. He's from Norfolk, Massachusetts. He graduated from Bridgewater State University and is currently working there as a dispatcher. And his long-term goal is to be on the municipal police department. So customarily, I invite the candidate in, but I'm very happy to tell you he can't make it because he's taking a class that I would have needed him to take anyways, and there was a very small window to get him to take it. So he volunteered to work to do this certification class before you even hired him. So it kind of shows to the kind of kid he is, and we're looking forward to bringing him on board. So I apologize that he's not here. He apologizes that he's not here, but if he didn't make this class, it would have been another month-long cycle before you could get in again.
Could I ask the question, when you said special officer?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Okay, the town of Dover has a cadre of special police officers, part-time police officers. They're assigned a regular weekend shift, and they rotate, and then they fill in for the full-time officers on days off or vacation or when they're tied up. And they also assist us with traffic details and what have you. And to be a full-time police officer in Dover, you must have been a part-time police officer. So it's similar to the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Boston Red Sox. So we have a good idea of how it works well. Exactly, it's our farm team. So it's a good idea. We can see how they interact both with the personnel in the department as well as the residents of town, and make sure that it's a good fix all around. So,
is there a minimum amount of time that they have to be a special officer?
No.
No, it's just, that's excellent.
Long enough for us to have a feeling of whether they'll fit.
That's great.
And it's usually pretty obvious.
That's great.
Chief, we know that you have assistance from a group of citizens. Yes. on the committee. And the board would like to thank you and the citizens. Can you remind us who the other two citizens are?
Sure. When we look to hire a special police officer, we put an advertisement out on the police hiring network, and we get sometimes as many as 50 or 60 resumes. So it's kind of hard to boil that down. We get it boiled down to a selection, and we bring them in for a 30-minute interview with a interview panel that's made up from 2 residents and myself and 2 police officers from the department. The residents that have been helping us most recently, actually since I've been here, have been Keith Taylor and Beverly Madden, and they've been with me for 5.5 years. I've been doing this, and they do a great job. They have a good feel for what it is we're looking for, both as a police department and a town.
Well, we extend our thanks to them and to the members of your staff for putting this all together.
Right.
Yes.
And I learned something new tonight. I was not aware that we had citizens on the panel, so I think
It makes
that
sense,
is
and that went on long before I got here,
Right,
and
right.
it was working all along then, so why not continue it?
That's great.
So with that, with your recommendation, I would like to go ahead and make a motion to appoint Donald Cahill as a special police officer for the town of Dover.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And perhaps one of our next meetings, if he's around, he'd like to come in and introduce himself to us. That would be great.
I would like to remind the board that the hiring is subject to the typical understanding that he'll successfully complete the physical agility test, the physical test, and the
The drug screening.
psychological
Right.
and drug screening.
Okay.
Chief, as a parent of a high school student, I hope we get to meet the new officer before I get my student work.
Good
Bring
point.
me in first. Thanks, sir.
I've been there, I understand that.
Should say high school, college.
Right.
Great.
Thank you.
No.
Next on the agenda is just for us to review the 2017 warrant articles that have been submitted to date. Just as a reminder, the warrant closes on January the 20th. So I am new to this, so should I just read each of the warrant articles or?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so far so far we have 26 warrant articles. A couple of them are just standard warrant articles that we see every year. They're recurring. So Article 1 is one of those. It is to report on the 2016 annual report. Article 2 is a special article. It's the revision to MGL 53E.
And 1/2.
And it is 1/2, I wasn't sure. Regarding revolving accounts. So it's just a change in law. Okay.
Revolving
Funds.
for building.
Okay, all right. So that doesn't have a little asterisk next to it. Should that be recurring as well?
It's because it's a revision
Okay,
to them, the way that revolving.
to the Mass General Law? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then the next 7 are just recurring. It is the number 3 is revolving funds for the building department, the Board of Health and Council on Aging and the library. Article 4 is to set salaries for elected officials for the fiscal year. Article 5 is salaries and expenditures by department for the ensuing fiscal year. Warrant Article 6 is various capital expenditures. Warrant Article 7 is funding for unemployment compensation fund, which we do every year, and it looks like right now it's approximately $10,000. Warrant Article 8 is payment of accumulated sick leave for retired officers, and Article 9 is the state funding for highway construction project. Article 10 is a special warrant article which is being sponsored by the Town Report Committee, and that's to amend the ways we may in the future be able to distribute the town report. At our last meeting, Ms. Weld came in here to talk about, potentially changing the bylaws so that the reports can be put on the website or emailed rather than mailing them to every household in Dover. Article 11 is a citizen's petition to accept Betsy Lane and Hunter's Path as public ways. Article 12 is sponsored by the Conservation Commission to replenish the Conservation Commission fund. Article 13 and 14 both pertain to the Dover-Sherborne Regional School Committee, and they both pertain to their capital account, and each year we make a determination as to whether or not we want to re-enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Sherborne. We have the choice to either raise debt or to pay in cash the funds necessary for the regional school committee. 15 is the planning board, and that's to amend some zoning bylaws. 16 pertains to 46 Springdale, and it's to install a new septic system, subdivide or authorize sale of the residence and outbuildings with a CR on them. And we do, starting pretty soon, in the near future, we will have some open forums that will be sponsored by the Board of Selectmen to talk about 46 Springdale and what we've done to date to get to a position to make a presentation at town meeting. Article 7 is at 17 is the last town meeting. The town charged the Board of Selectmen to negotiate a lease with the MBTA for the design and construction of a rail trail. Again, we will be having some open forums talking about, you know, where we stand with the process and what we've been able to negotiate to date. At town meeting, the town will vote solely on whether or not to allow the selectmen to execute a lease as has been negotiated with the MBTA. Number 18 is going to be sponsored by the Recycling Committee, and they have a placeholder for the adoption of a pay-as-you-throw program for solid waste disposal. Based upon our conversations with the Recycling Committee, I believe they will be holding some educational forums to educate those in the town on what this means and how they envision implementing it if they do get a positive response at town meeting. 19 is sponsored by the assessors, and that is whether or not to accept Blue Wave solar array payment in lieu of taxes, also known as a pilot program. Number 20 is sponsored by the Selectmen, and it would basically give the Selectmen an option to enter into a 20-year net metering arrangement with Blue Wave. Currently, the regional school has entered into that agreement with Blue Wave, and this would give us the option to step into the region's shoes should they wish to no longer be the primary party in this net metering arrangement. 21 through 26 are again annually recurring items. 21 is sponsored by the Warrant Committee, and it's the tax levy. 22 is unpaid bills. 23 is supplemental appropriations for Article 4. Number 24 is the transfer from free cash to reduce the tax rate. Number 25 is a supplemental, is whether or not to supplement the Dover Stabilization Fund. And then number 26 so far is the town clerk, and it's a listing of elected officials. That's what we have today. Again, the warrant article closes on the 20th. So if there's something that you would like to put on the warrant, you need to come in and go through the process of doing that. How many warrant articles did we have last year?
20, did we?
Yeah, so it seemed like a lot. I just thought maybe because I had to read it.
Last year there were 27, but a number of them were dismissed.
Right. Well, we know one. We already know that 13 or 14 will be 13 or 14.
That's right.
That's the only one we have. All right. The next item on the agenda is to consider a waiver of the registered voter requirement for a candidate appointment to CMAC and C of A. And Mr. Ramsey, would you talk to that?
Certainly, Madam Chair. So currently, the bylaws require that somebody to be eligible as a candidate for appointment to a board or committee has to be a registered voter of the town. In this particular instance, the person is not a registered voter by virtue of the fact she's not a citizen of the United States. So this requirement escaped me when she was initially appointed by the Board of Selectmen, but brought to my attention this time around. So for her reappointment, the board would have to, and for her appointment to the COA, the board would have to decide to waive that requirement for this particular case.
Okay. I think given the current composition of the town as I drive around, there are quite a number of non-citizens who are either here because a spouse is working here and has a work permit, and they're very capable and very involved in the town, and I would love to see them become even more involved. So I certainly am in favor, especially for this appointment. I know the person, and she has done a wonderful job in her position in CMAC, and I am in favor of waiving this registered voter requirement, and again would contemplate doing it again if we do find citizens. Well, not citizens, if we do find, I guess, citizens of the town of Dover who are willing and passionate about serving on some of our committees.
I agree. In fact, I think it speaks to the level of energy in this community. So it's wonderful when people step forward and say, let me help.
Right.
I think it's great.
I agree.
Okay. So then I would like to make a motion to waive the registered voter requirement for a candidate appointment to CMAC and C of A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, should we make the appointments? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
One had to precede the other.
All right. And so now I would like to nominate Ruth Townsend, and I would like to appoint her as associate board member position on the Dover C of A Board of Directors, and I would also like to reappoint her. Do we need to reappoint her for CMAC?
Yes, 3-year term.
For a 3-year term to CMAC. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I would like to say thank you to Ruth.
Right.
She's done a tremendous job. She has so much energy, and thank you for serving all of us in the town of Dover. Citizens, are there more appointments? Okay. Citizens' comments?
I have a question for you. My understanding is there was an open space committee meeting 2 nights ago. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. And my further understanding, I thought, Candace, you were there.
No,
You weren't.
I was not.
Either.
No.
What I saw on their agenda is that you were going to give an update. Had you been there, according to their agenda, you would have given an update on the negotiations with the MBTA.
Actually, Robin has spearheaded that.
I'm just telling you what was on their agenda.
Okay.
I didn't write it myself.
Right.
I was wondering if you could, succinctly summarize where you are at that time.
The MBTA is a complex organization, and to date, we have been able to talk to and negotiate with their preliminary consultants, who then go back to the MBTA. So we have spent the last 3 months. We took the standard lease. We marked up a lease based upon what we heard the town of Dover was looking for, and we took that lease to the consultants, the preliminary consultants, who hopefully are almost at a position to then present that lease to the MBTA. So I got some comments
back.
back.
Is that with a consultant as opposed to a preliminary consultant?
I hope not. My understanding of the way the process works is that these consultants then go through the process with the MBTA. And there's no way around this. When we approached the MBTA, we had to follow that process. We're extremely fortunate that the town's council, Steve Anderson, has a really good reputation and is well known at the MBTA. And I think because of his reputation, we actually got an in-person meeting with the consultants. So that was, a feather in our cap, so to speak. But it is a pretty slow process, and from the get-go, we made it clear to them that we needed to be in the position to present the terms of the lease to town meeting.
You're just touching upon what my next question was going to be. given that they're complex bureaucracy, and you have all these layers that you have to go through, I'm assuming that you probably don't have a real good feel as to when you will get some sort of definitive response from that, other than
Right, I
prognosis.
am still naively optimistic because of Steve Anderson that we will be able to make the deadline. And, it's very important to be able to discuss the terms of the lease. And at some point, we may need to make a decision. Do we begin to discuss terms that aren't concrete but close to concrete? But at this juncture, we are not even at that point.
It strikes me that you're obviously going to have your own deliberations within the board, but then depending upon where all of that goes, you have an educational process
Oh, yeah.
Right.
to the citizens
Right.
of the town as well, which is going to take some time.
Right.
Right.
And I will tell you, there's very little deliberation you can have with the MBTA. So
That's what the
it's
rumor has been all.
right. So we marked up the lease, and we asked for what we thought was reasonable, and the initial reaction was not, oh, none of this makes any sense at all. But it's going to be a long process.
Could I jump in just a second as well? And it's interesting when you said deliberations on the board. Our obligation, our promise to the town was that we would bring concrete terms back to the townspeople at this upcoming meeting. And I do believe that we will have an open forum that will hopefully have Mr. Anderson present. We'll also have all of us present and invite the public in to talk about, as you said, Mrs. Hunter, to go ahead and speak to the terms that we're close to, but we maybe haven't heard for sure about. But at the same time, what the process is going to be moving forward. And I completely agree with you. I think the informational open forum is the very most important next step for us as a board. That's what we're all looking to do, I hope, in the next month. I mean, we would like to do this perhaps by mid-February.
If I may, Madam Chair, the fellow we met with at the tea, and Mrs. Hunter is correct, it's quite a coup to even be able to sit at the table with a human being.
Not sure.
The consultant to the T.
Consultant to the tea, but representing them in one fashion or another. I think he said that ultimately, when we get past this phase, it gets vetted by 60 different places within the T for different things. So it struck me as daunting. I mean, a slower process there than even our town process. So it is daunting.
My guess is you probably can't hurry them along very much, given the bureaucracy.
We started asking for a meeting in the summer. We did our homework. We had a markup of the lease. We talked about what we thought was reasonable, and
Wasn't it October, I think?
yeah, we finally got, and it was one of these things where we kept calling and saying, we sent it in as soon as we had a markup, and Steve Anderson kept following up. And then one Friday, he called up, he said, "Are you available to meet the T on Monday?" So that's, so there's been a lot of that. And,
It's a very big
Bureaucracy.
well, I shouldn't even say the MBTA, it's the consultant to the MBTA that we were able to meet with.
And am I correct in thinking that at some point the Board of Selectmen will take a position, a recommendation for a town meeting? As to approve it or not approve it?
Right, I think once we have terms, then
Right.
each of us as citizens of Dover will analyze it and decide whether we're comfortable with it or not, and make that known at town meeting or before that.
Now, I'm curious, Mr. Jeffries, you feel you're up to speed on this at this point?
Very much so.
Good.
Yeah. It was quite a process last year,
Right.
in which there were a lot of people actively involved, and I haven't, in the years that I've been in Dover, I've never seen 950 people at a town meeting. So I thought it was well done. I think it's going to be an interesting next couple of months for us to be able to frame this properly. So given the time constraints, given what we have in front of us, to bring this to the citizens in an articulate, well-informed way. So,
Could I ask a quick follow-up question on this Rapella from last year? I wonder, is the town of Dover in exclusive negotiations for the lease? Do we know that? Or are there other interested parties negotiating as well?
Current, as far as I know, I am negotiating as a representative of the town of Dover. You know, you can go onto the MBTA's website, and there are other rail trails that have nonprofits that are the lessor. So, but as far as I know, for this particular rail trail, I haven't asked, at this point, I have not asked the MBTA directly, and or the consultant to the MBTA, and they certainly haven't volunteered that we are negotiating against somebody else for the same rail trail.
Okay.
So as far as I know, we are the only parties currently.
Thank you.
And you know, again, I think it's important what we're planning to bring to the town, and what we're planning to discuss during this open forum is just the merits of the lease that we've been able to negotiate. And, you know, certainly be willing to discuss the pros and cons of that lease. And I hope that we, as a group, have enough time to be able to look at what's ultimately we've been able to negotiate, and be able to have a risk assessment, you know, within our own minds of the pros and cons of this lease. So.
In fact, you're right. The focus really, we're trying to keep it, is on the lease. It's not an up or down on the rail trail. It's about the terms of the lease. And another open forum that we want to have while we're on the subject is we want to do very much the same thing with the public for 46 Springdale. We have a working group that is a representative from each of the major boards and commissions that have sent people who've been working with Landvest consultants, and we'll have some tiered information about some options, and we want to bring all of this to the public well in advance of annual town meeting. So we have on our plates this thought of 2 open forums coming up, one for rail trail lease terms and one for 46 Springdale.
And I assume on 46 Springdale, the concept still is to sell off a portion of the house and certain land areas, outbuildings if there are any there, or whatever, retain the rest of it as town property with access from Springdale Avenue to the town property.
It's interesting because Landvest has already completely identified about 4 specific options. And if I were to take a straw vote around a table of about 12 people, I think you're right, the majority are leaning exactly as you're describing, but we haven't gotten to that point of a single view. And I believe that most of the people at the table, even if in fact we all agreed on Plan A, let's say, I think we still are eager to take that to the townspeople in the form of an open forum. So we'd like everyone to be very much on the same page as we walk into annual town meeting this year.
Which was not the case.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And you know, we as a board learned a lot from last year, because we felt as though all citizens and all committees had all the same information, and we learned that that wasn't necessarily the case. So this working group was a way for us to ensure that all boards and committees are part of the process from the get-go, as opposed to just the decision-making process.
And you're speaking specifically to 46.
Right.
Correct.
Unfortunately, I have, you know, as the representative of the Board of Selectmen, I'm having a hard enough time getting the T to listen to me. So I just don't think with a whole bunch of committees it would be much better. But you know, definitely we learned, you know, we learned a good lesson last year of how important it is to get that information out there and make sure that all the boards and committees are focusing on the same issues. Because I think we were all talking, but we were talking past each other last year on these issues. So I'm comfortable that this year we're all at the table together making the decision.
It is a very dynamic process, and I think what we've all said in different ways is our job as a board is to properly frame the scope of the discussion as it pertains to this board. We can't take into consideration what may be something that is on the table for another group or another organization or something else that is happening on a parallel plane. Our job is to focus and frame this specifically as it pertains to the board, which we'll do.
Just a quick follow-up question. I think that's a great point. But in terms of Springdale and the 4 different options that are being considered, will those come with a financial impact assessment?
Yes, very specific. In fact, at our last meeting, we authorized the use of consulting time from Landvest for exactly that purpose.
That will include the impact on the value of the property?
Correct.
For the sale?
Absolutely. So, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead. No. Go ahead.
For not only the purpose of the value of the property, but the impact of that value as a return, if you will, to the town. So, it's a great point, and thank you for bringing it up. And Candace has done a lot of work on this, and so we really are focused on that impact financially and use, the ability to use it, the ability to have that return, if you will, on both sides of the equation.
And we felt that Landvest was really uniquely positioned to assist us in making a non-emotional assessment.
Thank you.
They will be present at the open forum. We're going to bring Steve Anderson to the rail trail lease. We're going to bring Landvest to the open forum on 46 Springdale.
And we're going to sit and watch.
That'd be nice.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those questions.
Yes, that was great discussion, so thank you. Any, Ms. Caney?
Just confirming one closes the 20th?
Yep. January 20th, 2017, 5 p.m. or midnight?
1 o'clock.
1 p.m. Okay. All right. And with that, thank you all. Thank you for the good discussion.
Yep.
And I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.